Welcome to What Shall We Say to These Things.
I'm TJ.
And I'm MJ.
And this is your low-key ghetto Bible study.
Yes. So we finally started Ruth last time. We finished chapter 1 and we're heading straight into it. We're halfway today in chapter 2.
Yeah, because Ruth only has 4 chapters.
Yes. Okay. So just a reminder, we're taking suggestions for what to study next.
So this is the point where we would usually ask you to pause, say a prayer before we get into it.
Okay. So TJ, take it away.
All right. So Ruth chapter 2 has about 22, 23 verses, 23. And so for our first portion of review, we're going to be looking at verses 1 to 13. So it starts by telling us that Naomi still has in-laws. There's a particular man who is from the clan of Elimelech. I love that name, Elimelech, and his name is Boaz. And Ruth gets Naomi to agree to let her go out in the fields and pick up leftover grain during the harvesting. And so Ruth goes out, and she ends up in one of Boaz's fields. And at this particular day, Boaz is just coming from Bethlehem, and he gets to the field and he greets the harvesters with a blessing, which I thought was really nice, right? He greets them with a blessing, and then he asks, who does this young lady belong to? And the overseer responds and tells him, this is the Moabite who came back with Naomi. And he adds that she came and she asked to glean behind the harvesters, and she's worked from morning, and she's only taken a short break for shelter. And so Boaz goes up to Ruth and he speaks to her and he tells her to stay in his fields, to stay with the the young ladies working in his fields, and follow the harvesters closely. And he tells her that he's warned his workers not to interfere with her, not to hurt or harm her, and that she could also drink from the water that is being stored for his workers to use. And Ruth responds to this, his I don't know what to call it, his announcements, his statements, by bowing with her face to the ground and asking, why is he being so kind to her, a foreigner? And Boaz tells her that he has heard of everything she has done for her mother-in-law, that she has left her parents and moved to an unknown land, and he tells her that may the God of Israel richly reward and repay her for what she has done. And then Ruth says that she hopes she will always find favor in his eyes, and she has been put at ease because he has spoken to her kindly, like one of his servants, even though she is not home.
You said that last part, and honestly, I don't remember reading that part at all. That's her response.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
unpack. Time to unpack.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So, and we had a conversation about this when we first started reading Ruth. And this chapter, the whole story, the whole book on it in whole, but particularly this chapter, gave me very much Hallmark movie vibes. Right? At the beginning of this chapter, we are introduced to Boaz before he even makes an appearance. Right? Before he even has his scene. Before, we just given his background, his context in the whole situation. And I was just like, we are meeting the characters at the beginning of a movie. Yes. Very much Hallmark. So that was one of the things that stood out to me. The second thing that stood out to me was that either this was a very, very close-knit community, which we kind of get the feeling of from chapter 1 when Naomi comes back and everybody's so excited to see her and everybody knows who she is. Or there was something about Ruth's appearance that sold her out as being someone that Boaz did not know.
Oh, okay.
Because he greets his workers and then immediately he's like... And, this leads to my third point, right? Because he doesn't say, who is that? He says, who does she belong to? Which, for me, gave me very big patriarchy. Why are we identifying a woman as who she belongs to? But I guess it could also be cultural, because at the beginning of this chapter, we identify Boaz as being a part of the clan of Elimelech. So it might just be, this is just how we talk about people as what part of the family, whose family they're from, whose family they belong to. But
I was when you said that, I was thinking that what he meant was she was a servant. And so whose servant is she?
this?
That's what, yeah. But still, it seems very, it the phrasing belong to still seems very, it makes me uncomfortable. I feel it.
I think it's a thing. I don't want to say like it's feminist, but like there's been this strive and drive for women to be identified as individuals and not as so and so's daughter and so and so's sister or wife. Well, not
mother.
sister, but like mother, or you know,
they're just people.
Right. We want our own identity. Right. So I think that's part of why it kind of tickled me the wrong way, because he could have just asked, "Who's this?" I've never seen her before. Who's this? But he asked, "Who does she belong to?" And I guess, like we saying, it could be just the cultural context of identifying people, right? But yeah.
My points actually started with Ruth. We find out that she tells Naomi, "Let me go and find stuff for us to eat," basically. And it was not like, she came into this relationship not expecting for Naomi to provide for her. That for her to pick up and decide, let me go and find food for us. It's not that she was like, okay, Naomi's going back home, the famine is over, she'll take care of me. It's I'm going to do what I can for this woman that I love. I'm going to do anything I have to provide for us. And I thought that further establishes this loyalty, this dedication, this bond that these women have, and I really admire that about.
And I guess part of it is that she's the younger woman in the situation as well. She may be the one in a position or with the health and the ability to work, and well, yeah.
And she went ham.
Yeah.
She like, my words for her are industrious. She's proactive, and she's dedicated. She spent a whole day working. Like, she takes a few breaks and she just head down, and she's like, I'm going to get this food for me and Naomi to survive.
Yeah. I think my points in relation to that are at the end of the second part of the
okay. I like that Ruth has a reputation as well. I like that Boaz, they just tell him that she's the Moabitess that Naomi that came with Naomi, but he knows all that she's done for Naomi. Everybody knows that
she left her
family behind, and everybody knows that that's a sacrifice and can appreciate that. And so I like that Ruth, she has a reputation already, a good one, and people
admire her
for that and recognize it, and we can see her receiving favor because of it.
And I think it's interesting, particularly because I don't know, like, I just generally got the vibe throughout the Bible that the Jews and the Moabites were not necessarily on the best terms, but like they were like Gentiles and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So it was interesting to see them embrace.
But that was another thing I was saying. Is like, nothing has changed. The fact that she keeps saying, I can't believe you showing this kindness to me, a foreigner, and the fact that she can expect to be treated poorly and with disrespect, and the fact that he has to warn his men, don't touch her, because as a foreigner she might not have the right to be protected. It's just like, oh my goodness, humans have not changed.
My next point, right? It was something, it made me think about parents, right? So they refer to everybody younger than them as a young man, young woman, right? Or a boy or a girl. And so for me, the fact that he referred to her as a young woman was telling for me about his age.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It set off the not the red flag, the signal for me that this is an older person.
Okay.
Because like we have no actual context of how old Ruth actually is, but just for him to refer to her as a young woman means he's an older person.
Yes.
So I thought, like, I laughed at that.
Okay.
Because it just reminded me of our parents. Like, they talk about a young man. It could be anybody from a teenager to somebody who's well into their age. As long as the person is younger than him, it's a young man. Yeah. So that was interesting for me. My final point in this part for me was, and you mentioned it a while ago, was that Boaz saw it important to tell his male workers not to interfere with her. And I think for me it was a couple of things that, like, for me it was kind of sad that he felt that he needed to warn him, because like it was a possible outcome if he had not warned them that they would have interfered with her. But on the flip side, I think it was like it's interesting because, like, we missed that part. Like, we missed that conversation. He tells her he's already told them.
I was reading ahead in Ruth, and like, that's jarring for me. That happens a lot. There's like, Ruth and Naomi will have a conversation, and they'll leave a part out of it, because when Ruth is relaying that part to Boaz, instead of writing it twice, so it looks like it's a writing
We'll tell
style.
you later.
Right.
Yeah, you'll find out later. Yeah. So I thought it was interesting because the way it reads in the beginning of the chapter is just that he says,
he greets them.
He finds out who she is, and he immediately goes to talk to her. But based on this, we're finding out that he has a conversation with his male workers, and then he goes to talk to her.
Okay.
And he tells her, I've already told them to not interfere with you. Which I think, I appreciate that. As a young woman, who... I wouldn't have to go gleaning in any fields. Maybe not. Possibly in this lifetime. But just to think that here's this individual who, just out of admiration for what she's been doing, out of respect for her, out of kindness, is doing what he can to protect her.
Yes.
Which we appreciate.
Yes.
Also, big Hallmark vibes. We appreciate.
Definitely. Is there anything else that I have? I like Boaz's interactions with his employees. Like, the blessing in the beginning, and the fact that it looks like he provides meals for them, and drinking water. And I think there's a sense of respect, because he tells them don't touch Ruth. He tells them leave this. Have we gone? That's the next part.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but he gives them instructions, and they follow. And I think that's
a healthy work environment.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, definitely.
Which is telling of what type of employer he is and the type of person he is, and we appreciate that.
Yes, definitely. As our main love interest in the Hallmark movie.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're setting the tone for us to like
to
this
root for
guy.
him. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
You have anything else?
I didn't talk about this, but in her hardworking and industriousness, I see selflessness in Ruth as well. Because, like you were saying, Naomi's an older woman. She may not be able to, like, this would have been back-breaking work, right? You're in the sun, and
and possibly doubled over.
Right. Picking stuff up, and then lugging it and carrying it, and to, you get the feeling that Ruth may not have had to do much work prior, as a wife, like, not this kind of work. She didn't have to provide for herself in the way that society was set up. Her husband would have done the work and provided for her. And so, and you also imagine that in choosing to come with Naomi, she anticipated that this was
something that she would have to do.
And so
she would have to be the provider.
Right. So you just seeing the selflessness and it's like, and we continue to see it. It's just this, like, blind trust and faith in Naomi, and the belief that she needs to take care of her in that sense. Yeah. And, like, I feel like, well, I think that's a relationship thing as well. I was saying, like, I feel like that's an approach all young people should have towards the elders, like the people in their lives, their parents, their grandparents, but
their in-laws.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But I don't know that it can come that easily if there's not that relationship.
Yeah, I understand. It would require another level of sacrifice and selflessness and like just pure heartedness to do it without the level of relationship. Yeah. So let's get into the second part. So we're looking at verses 14 to 23. And so basically it tells us that at mealtime, Boaz goes a step further and he invites Ruth to come and eat with him and his workers. And she eats her belly full and she has some left over and she stores that away. And she goes back to work right after she's done eating. And Boaz tells his young men to not disturb her as she collects. If she comes close to them, like, don't huff her, don't reprimand her, and that if they can possibly go as far as to drop some for her to collect. Alright? And Ruth works until the end of the day, and then she beats out the sheaves that she's collected, and they give us a measurement of how much she's collected. So I had to go and find a conversion to modern day weight, and they saying it's about 33 liters.
What? How much? I'm
your water bottle is a liter.
Okay.
So the weight, your water bottle full is a liter.
Oh my goodness.
So 33 of those full. That's how much grain she collected.
Okay. How many liters in a gallon? We don't know.
No, you're asking the wrong person.
Okay.
Right?
But 30.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. Alright.
I could barely carry my water bottle.
Alright. And then she goes home because she's beaten out all the she's collected her grain, and she goes home and she shows Naomi what she's collected, and then she also gives her the leftover food she had. Right? And Naomi was like, "What? Oh, where did you work? Whose field were you in? Like, what's happening? What went on?" And Ruth is able to tell her, "I worked in Boaz's field." And Naomi's response is to praise God for his kindness to them, for his goodness to them. And she explains to Ruth Boaz's connection to the family.
Okay.
And she tells her, Ruth tells her that Boaz said she could work in his fields, stay with his workers until the end of the harvest. And Naomi's like, that's good. You do that. You stay in his fields. Don't go to any other fields. You work with his young women. This is the plan. This is the plan. And that's exactly what Ruth did. Yeah, so that's
the end of Ruth Chapter 2.
The end of Ruth Chapter 2. I think like in the first, is it the first part? Yeah, in the first half of the chapter, Boaz tells Ruth that he hopes God will richly repay her and reward her. But then we see him doing everything in his power to be part of that reward. Like, you know, he tells her, go ahead, drink from the water. Then when it's mealtime, he was like, come. And like the Bible talks about him giving her bread and telling her dip it into the vinegar. And then he gives her roasted grain to eat as well. So like he's not just saying you could come eat. He's giving her food. He's like, here, eat. Here you go. Here, I'll feed you, you know? And then he tells his workers, drop the sheaves on the ground. Like this is a businessman, right? Who is basically saying we can lose some of our profit to make sure that this woman gets food. Like to me, that was like I was just like, you know, and so it was just an interesting thing to process that this guy, yes, he's saying let God will reward you, but he's going out of his way to be part of this reward, and I'm just like, I'm rooting for you, Mr. Boaz. You are the love interest of choice here, you know. Yeah. I support this ship. And you like my second point is links to what you were saying earlier about Ruth, that she's industrious, that she's disciplined. But I also wanted to mention that she must have been a fast learner, because I don't think prior to that day Ruth had ever had to go collect sheaves and beat them to get grain. Like this is not something she's necessarily ever done before, but she decides this is what I'm going to do. She decides this is what she's going to do. She goes and she does it, and she does it well because she comes back with 33 liters of grain. And I'm like, and I think that must have been like, I think that is part of why Naomi was like, where did you go? Because to collect that much grain, right, means that either she was stealing from the people's bundles, right, or something was off. Because like I don't think like working for one day, and it also tells to like the extent of how long she worked as well.
Because like I feel like I'm thinking about wheat. I don't know if that this time she's doing wheat or barley, but I'm thinking about one of the, what do you call them?
A stock.
Yeah, like to me you don't get much from one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the one she picking up all day. Like, yeah, it's something doesn't add up.
And I think that, but I think her response that it was Boaz's field must have been like, oh,
that makes sense.
That makes sense. Because it also tells us that Naomi knows the type of person Boaz is.
Yes.
Because she would immediately figure out, he's looking out for us. He's taking care of us, you know? He's honoring the family connection. So yeah. So those are the points I have. You go ahead.
I don't know if I should have mentioned that one before, but it just the whole, it's, I guess it was a small town kind of situation. People paying attention to each other. Like Naomi knows who Boaz is, knows what type of person he is, and everybody knows about Ruth. And it made me think of this one time I saw one of our little cousins, not a first cousin. I watched him feed one of his little cousins. We were at the church and there were lots of people milling about. It looks like the child's parent had left them together, or they were not too busy to thing. So he has his food, the older cousin's food. The little cousin is with him, and he's feeding him and making sure he doesn't dirty himself. And the older cousin, he just went to secondary
school. He must
school.
have been about 12.
Yeah, so he's about 12. And I was just like, it just touched my heart. Like it filled me with so much joy. And he will never know I saw that, but it will forever change my interactions with him.
Yeah.
And my desire for good to happen to him because I saw that. And so it made me understand
how people were reacting to Ruth.
Right. Yeah. You see this kind of selflessness, this kind of love, this kind of loyalty, and you can't help but want the best for her, and like Boaz, want to be a part of the reward that she receives. Yeah. So that
makes sense. And if you pray, it might help too.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. But that made me think about something that Daddy has been talking about recently. He was listening to a rabbi, and rabbi talk about the word charity and how it meant that a lot of us think about, I'll give some of what I have out of the goodness of my heart. But what charity is supposed to mean is that it was never all mine to begin with. God gave to me so I can give to others.
A stewardship type situation.
And Boaz's response, Boaz's wanting to be a part of providing for Ruth,
and Naomi.
And Naomi, right. Gave me that same connection that this is not, God has blessed me. I'm a good businessman. I'm wealthy, but it's also my responsibility to look out for those less fortunate, those vulnerable, and that translated into his asking that she be protected as well for me. This is a vulnerable young woman who could be in danger. I'm going to do everything in my power to protect her. And Boaz, I've listened to pastors treat Boaz like the male equivalent of the Proverbs 31 woman. And I've never understood it. I was like, he was just an old guy with
resources.
yeah, but like studying now, I can see like there are lots of qualities to admire in him. Yeah, I'm rooting for him.
Wait for your Boaz.
Right. Yeah. I don't know that I have. Oh, the other, but this is a God.
We
This is
could
a
go
God
into that.
lesson. Okay. What I can learn about God is that you see him throughout the chapter. They mention that God was the one leading. So God led Ruth to Boaz's field, and God blessed them by Ruth ending up in Boaz's field. And it just goes to show that like something as simple as that, Ruth picking up and deciding to leave the house and go out to the fields. God could lead her and direct her into a path that changes her life and history, all of history, as a result. And so it just reminds me of, God's providence and his favor. Them working together is a big deal. Yeah, and
that's like you use so many. Like you said my first point, and you even use so many of the same words I have in it. Right? What I literally have is God can set up the simplest situations for our good, and I talked about Ruth choosing the field, and also the fact that Boaz showed up when he did.
Ah, wow.
Yeah, because it says he was coming from Bethlehem. Like, I think as a wealthy businessman, he was not necessarily visiting this field. Not just all of it. I think he was visiting all his fields, but like I don't think he necessarily is going to visit this field every day.
Okay.
But he shows up on this particular day at this time where Ruth is visible to him. So I think all of that was. I wanted to use the word orchestrated, but I felt like, yes, God is a musician. At the same time, I didn't want to use the word orchestrated, but I think sometimes I feel like he does put all the right things in place, even in the simplest situations, to work things out for our good.
Yes. Yeah. I'm a believer in that. I think, like, I don't want to go as far as us being pawns. I don't believe in that aspect. I still believe in our choice, our freedom of choice, and us having our own wills. But I also believe in his direction and his moving things.
As we move.
Right. Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, Ruth, he could have, the spirit could have nudged Ruth to go to the field, and she was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I'll go tomorrow. But, she also followed. And that was a choice she had. So I think, like you rightly saying, there is the element of choice. But as we choose to follow his leading, and as we move, he sets things up for our good.
Yes, definitely.
My second point about God is like a two-way street that and it's based on Boaz. So sometimes God puts a Boaz in our life, not in terms of like a husband, but just as in someone who is there, who will bless us, who will set things in our favor. And then the flip side is sometimes God makes us the Boaz in other people's lives. Yeah.
I think we were on the same wavelength this thing. Yeah. My second point about God was not in that sense. Well, maybe it was in that sense. It wasn't about God. It was about us. It was our point about us. Yes. It was that God uses us sometimes to bless others, to carry out his reward for them. Right. Yeah. And so we need to keep our eyes open for those opportunities to let God use us to reward
and listen to his proddings and his nudgings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I have 3 points in terms of my life, and it's one for each of the characters.
Okay.
So for me, it's Ruth's diligence. Like, I really admire this woman who went out to work in the hot sun in a field, and like she took a break for shelter, she took a break to eat. But other than that, she worked through the day. Like, that is a diligent woman. Like, #goals, right? But for the most part, right?
Yes.
For the most part, like, I want to be that diligent. So that's my thing. I need to be practicing going forward is Ruth's diligence. Okay. The second thing for me is Naomi's gratefulness. Ruth comes back with the food and explains where it came from, and Naomi's response is to thank God. And I think she could have just thanked Ruth, and she could have thanked Boaz, because Ruth did the work and Boaz did the giving, but she thanked God. And I think sometimes in situations we thank people, and yes, they're deserving of our gratitude, but I think we also need to acknowledge God's involvement, his influence in the situation, his providence in the situation. So I think that's another thing. That's the second thing that I want to practice. So it's Ruth's diligence, Naomi's gratefulness, and I think my third point is Boaz's kindness, and that's what we were just talking about in terms of being open and willing to be the Boaz in somebody else's situation, to be, to tell people don't interfere with them, or to say deliberately drop stalks of barley so that they can collect. So yeah.
And I like that. And you said that deliberately dropping stalks. It wasn't a handout. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the time, people to give them, it will offend them.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's necessarily a bad thing to give people. Did I write that down? I wrote down something. Where is it? Right. There's this concept that we shouldn't give the man a fish. We should teach him how to fish. But he needs to eat while he's learning how to fish.
Yeah, he can't fish on an empty belly.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I love the concept of giving. So she's here, she's working, but we
make it a little easier for her.
We're making it easier for her. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate that concept for giving. It's not, he didn't just come sit in the shade. Here's a thing
and I think he also may have understood that she would not have appreciated that.
Yes,
that handout. She's working. She's come and she's working, and she's being diligent and disciplined. Mm-hmm. And I think he understood that. Yes, he could, because I feel like he could have just gone after work and brought sheaves to their house. He could have also gone that route. Yeah. But he was respectful of her integrity and her dignity and the hard work that she was doing, and he just made it a little easier for her.
Yes. So I never thought Ruth could be about giving. You could learn, because to me this is such a great model for giving to the less fortunate. Mm-hmm. Of like you saying, being what's the word? Being mindful of their dignity. I find a lot of the time, you see it on Facebook and YouTube all the time, these people videotaping themselves giving to homeless people, and I'm just I understand the concept. I understand that when we see those things, it makes us feel good. I understand that other people seeing it may want to do it.
And I think for some people it's also an issue of accountability and transparency, because if it's a situation where you collected money from other people,
right,
so you want to, this is where your money went,
right?
But I think even in those moments we need to respect people's humanity.
Yes, we really need to be mindful of maintaining their dignity and remembering that is this something they want everybody to see, and how it's being portrayed, is that the way they want to be seen.
And just put yourself in the person's shoes. If you were in this situation, would you want somebody to treat you like this? Would you want your moment of lowness to be displayed and broadcasted like this?
Exactly.
I think there are ways to do it. While like we saying, we can find the Boaz way to do it.
Yes, definitely.
Drop the sheaves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think we got more from Ruth Chapter 2 than we expected and intended.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The discussion, I think that's for me, I've discovered that this is a vital part of Bible study for me. Yeah, having somebody to talk with, because a lot of the ideas and the And even some of the notes I have only hit home after we've begun discussing.
Okay. So
I think that's it.
Yep.
So next time, Ruth chapter 3.
Hmm?
And then we done. Almost.
Yeah.
Almost. Okay, so this has been What Shall We Say to These Things?
I'm TJ.
And I'm MJ.
And until next time, we're out.